Hello, my name is Carl Geffken, candidate for City Manager of Palm Coast, Florida. Here are the answers to the questions sent to the candidates for City Council's review. Question 1. How would you implement an effective economic development program that comports with the comprehensive plan and 2050 vision that our City Council recently approved? My approach to implementing an effective economic development program would be grounded in turning the city's new 2050 comprehensive plan from a visionary document into a tangible action plan with measurable results. My experience in Fort Smith and Reading demonstrates a clear track record of working with city leaders to achieve strategic goals, managing large-scale infrastructure projects, and ensuring fiscal responsibility. I would build the program on 3 core pillars that are drawn directly from the plan. Number 1, strategic targeting and site readiness. The plan wisely calls for targeting specific high-value industries like advanced manufacturing, aerospace and aviation, and healthcare. My immediate focus would be to partner with our planning department and the business community to create an inventory of shovel-ready economic employment center sites. This aligns with my hands-on experience in Fort Smith, where I worked closely with the Chamber of Commerce to attract new businesses by using incentives and ensuring sites were ready for development. We must proactively prepare land with the necessary infrastructure and clear zoning to move at the speed of business, not government. Number 2, streamlining for a pro-business climate. A vision for economic growth is only as good as the city's ability to execute. The plan emphasizes the need for a vibrant business climate, including a fast-track permitting process for targeted industries. Drawing on my background in turning around complex organizations and cutting through bureaucracy, I would immediately work to streamline our development review process. My goal is to make Palm Coast the premier destination for investment by being a reliable and efficient partner. This includes creating clear, performance-based incentive programs that protect our finances while attracting the jobs our residents need. Number 3, cultivating the complete ecosystem. A successful economic program isn't just about attracting companies. It's about attracting and retaining talented people. The plan correctly links economic growth to workforce development and quality of life. I would actively forge partnerships with the Flagler County School District and our local colleges to build a talent pipeline that meets the needs of our target industries. Furthermore, we must continue investing in the amenities that make Palm Coast a desirable place to live, such as our parks, trails, and diverse housing options. My experience using public-private partnerships to build and expand parks in Fort Smith shows that these quality-of-life investments are also smart economic strategy. Ultimately, my plan is one of disciplined execution. I will ensure our economic development efforts are fiscally sound, as demonstrated by my work increasing Fort Smith's fund balance from $7 million to $45 million, and a fully aligned with a balanced, forward-thinking vision that you have set forth in the 2050 Comprehensive Plan. Question 2. What are your leadership management philosophies, and how would you apply them to lead our organization? Based on my resume, here's a brief statement on my leadership and management philosophies. My leadership philosophy is built on 3 core principles: accountability through measurable outcomes, collaboration over silos, and empowerment of the team. These aren't just theories. These are the practical methods I've used to turn around troubled organizations and lead successful cities. Accountability through measurable outcomes. I believe that what gets measured gets managed. In Berks County, I created the first county-wide management report with goals and measurable outcomes, and I met with department heads monthly to ensure we were achieving them. In Reading, this philosophy was critical in turning a projected $15 million deficit, roughly 25% of the general fund budget, into a surplus, and reducing a federal wastewater consent decree cost by $300 million through active management and goal setting. But how would I apply this? I will work with department heads to establish clear, data-driven goals for every city function. We will track our progress transparently and make adjustments based on performance, ensuring every tax dollar is used effectively to deliver results for our citizens. More about collaboration and transparent communication. An organization is most effective when all parts work together toward a common goal. One of my first priorities in Fort Smith was to increase interdepartmental cooperation to break down the siloed behaviors that hindered efficiency. I also met regularly with all board of directors to ensure alignment and foster open dialogue, and I actively pursued public-private partnerships to expand services and build new parks. How I would apply this: I will foster an environment of open communication, both within City Hall and with the City Council and community. I will implement regular strategic planning sessions and workshops to ensure that we are all aligned with our priorities and working collaboratively to achieve them. More about empowerment and professional development. A leader's success is ultimately measured by the success of their team. I'm a firm believer in identifying and developing talent within an organization. In Fort Smith, I actively mentored up and coming managers for succession planning, which increases job satisfaction and builds a stronger, more resilient organization. As a change agent in Berks County, my role was to raise the level of acceptable performance by increasing the competency of the executive team. How would I go about applying this? I will invest in our team's professional growth, provide them with the support and resources they need to excel, and create clear pathways for advancement. By empowering our employees, we build a high-performing organization that is innovative, efficient, and dedicated to exceptional public service. Question 3. Palm Coast is experiencing rapid growth that places significant pressure on utilities, stormwater, and transportation systems. At the same time, residents expect fiscal responsibility and efficient government. As city manager, how would you prioritize infrastructure investments, balance the budget, and communicate these trade-offs to both the council and the public? The challenge of balancing rapid growth with fiscal responsibility is one I have successfully managed throughout my career. My approach for Palm Coast would be a disciplined three-part strategy of data-driven prioritization, disciplined budgeting, and transparent communication, using the city's newly adopted comprehensive plan as our guiding charter. Number 1, data-driven prioritization. We would prioritize infrastructure investments not based on who shouts the loudest, but on a clear, logical framework established in the city's own capital improvements element. The plan provides an excellent roadmap in Policy 8.1.1.6, which I would implement as our standard operating procedure. Our priorities would be in order: number 1, public health and safety. Addressing any immediate hazards to our citizens is non-negotiable. Number 2, maintaining existing systems. We must eliminate existing deficiencies to meet our adopted levels of service standards and protect the investments we've already made. My experience in managing the wastewater consent decree project in Reading demonstrates my ability to execute on large-scale critical infrastructure projects. Number 3, accommodating new growth. Once our foundational needs are met, we will strategically expand capacity for new development, ensuring growth is sustainable and not a drain on current residents. Now, number 2, disciplined budgeting and fiscal management. Fiscal responsibility is the bedrock of a well-run city. My track record is clear. I took a city on the brink of bankruptcy and left it with a $12 million cash reserve. And in Fort Smith, I grew the general fund balance from $7 million to $45 million. I would apply that same discipline here. We would live within our means. We will create budgets that are structurally balanced without relying on one-time fund reserves for recurring operational costs, a practice I eliminated in Fort Smith. I would ensure that growth pays for itself. As stated in the plan's User Pays principle, Objective 8.1.4, I will ensure that new development bears its proportionate cost for the infrastructure it requires through mechanisms like impact fees and developer contributions. How exploring all funding options. I will actively pursue innovative funding mechanisms, state and federal grants, and public-private partnerships to leverage our local tax dollars and reduce the burden on our citizens. Number 3, transparent and proactive communication. Explaining these complex trade-offs requires proactive communication strategy. For the council, I would implement the same process that proved highly successful in Fort Smith, an annual budget review and goal-setting workshop combined with a strategic planning session. This collaborative forum allows us to review the data, discuss priorities, and make tough decisions as a unified team before the formal budget is presented. For the public, in line with the plan's public participation goals, we will use all available channels, the city's website, social media, and public meetings, to clearly communicate our strategy. We won't just present a list of projects, we will explain the why behind our decisions, linking them directly back to the prioritization criteria in the comprehensive plan. The message will be clear. Here's our plan to address growth. Here's how we are prioritizing projects to protect your safety and quality of life. And here is our fiscally responsible plan to pay for it. This integrated approach of prioritizing, funding, and communicating ensures that we can meet the infrastructure demands of a growing city while upholding the public's trust and maintaining a strong financial foundation. Question 4. Tell us about a time when you faced a complex and high-stakes decision as a senior manager, a city manager, or senior leader. How did you evaluate the options, engage stakeholders, and ultimately decide on a course of action? Looking back, what would you repeat and what would you do differently? One of the most complex and high-stakes decisions a city manager makes is hiring key department heads, especially public safety chiefs. When I arrived in Fort Smith, I was immediately faced with filling 4 critical roles: utilities director, HR director, police chief, and fire chief. The police and fire chief hires in particular carried immense weight for employee morale, public trust, and the long-term safety of the community. Evaluation and stakeholder engagement. A. My approach was to create a robust, transparent, and multifaceted hiring process designed to identify the absolute best candidates, regardless of their background. The goal was to remove personal bias and ensure the decision was rooted in a comprehensive evaluation by a wide range of stakeholders. I designed a 3-tiered panel interview process. The first panel was a citizens panel, composed of community leaders and residents to ensure the candidates understood and could connect with the public they would serve. The second was a department head panel to gauge the candidates' ability to collaborate and function as part of the city's executive leadership team. The third and final panel was an interview consisting of the deputy city administrator and myself for the final assessment of qualifications, leadership, philosophy, and fit. To add another layer of evaluation and foster buy-in from our elected officials, I hosted a lunch for all the finalists, the department heads, and the entire city board of directors. This was not a formal interview, but an opportunity to observe the candidates in a more relaxed setting and to allow the board members to interact with them directly. While the hiring decision was ultimately mine, this step was crucial for transparency and allowed me to solicit informal feedback from the board, which I valued greatly. The process worked exactly as intended. 2 candidates clearly and consistently rose to the top across all panels. The best candidate for fire chief was a highly respected internal candidate, a white male with deep institutional knowledge and the trust of his department. The best candidate for police chief was an exceptional external candidate, an African-American male who brought a fresh perspective and a proven track record of community-focused policing from a larger department. I hired them both. The decision was straightforward because the process was designed to identify excellence, and it did. I chose the most qualified individuals to lead these critical departments. But what would I repeat and what would I do differently? Looking back, I would absolutely repeat the comprehensive multi-panel process and the inclusion of the board of directors. It was transparent, it engaged the right stakeholders, and it produced outstanding leaders for the city. I stand by those hiring decisions 100%. They were the right people for the right jobs, and they served the city with distinction. What I would do differently is how I would handle the aftermath. Following the announcement, I received questions and faced some pressure focused on the race of the new police chief. My focus was, and always will be, on hiring the most qualified candidate. In retrospect, I would not even entertain questions about the race of the best candidate. I would simply state that our process was designed to find the best leaders, and it was successful. Period. The moment you begin to justify a hiring decision based on anything other than merit, you undermine the integrity of the process and the qualifications of the excellent person you hired. The lesson learned was to have absolute confidence in a fair and thorough process and to refuse to engage in discussions that distract from the most important factor, choosing the best leader for the community. Question 5. When deciding on the millage tax rate for the coming fiscal year budget, what is the impact of inflation if the rollback rate is chosen? Choosing the rollback rate during an inflationary period is effectively a budget cut in terms of real purchasing power. My experience turning around a city on the brink of bankruptcy has taught me to be direct about the real-world consequences of budget decisions. Here's the impact of that choice. The illusion of a flat or the rollback rate. The rollback rate's designed to bring in the exact same number of tax dollars as the previous year. While this sounds like holding the line, it ignores a critical economic reality: inflation. The cost of everything the city buys, fuel for police cars, asphalt for roads, health insurance for employees, construction materials, increases with inflation. When revenue remains flat while expenses increase, the city has less purchasing power. It's like getting the same paycheck as last year, but finding that your costs for gas, groceries, and housing have all gone up significantly. You have the same number of dollars, but you can afford less. The impact is on city operations. As a city manager, my primary responsibility is to ensure the effective delivery of services. Adopting the rollback rate in an inflationary environment would directly impact our ability to do that and would lead to difficult choices, such as deferred maintenance. We may have to delay road paving, park maintenance, or equipment replacement, which only makes those projects more expensive in the future. Or reduce services. The city may not be able to afford the same level of service, potentially impacting police and fire response capabilities, trash pickup frequency, or library hours. Also, personnel challenges. It becomes difficult to provide cost of living adjustments for city employees, making it harder to recruit and retain the qualified staff needed to run the city effectively. The city should always be an employer of choice. My approach has always been to implement strong financial controls and balanced budgets based on reality, not illusions. In the city of Reading, I turned a projected $15 million deficit into a surplus by making tough, data-driven decisions. In short, while the rollback rate may be appealing, it is fiscally regressive choice during inflationary times. It forces a reduction in the city's ability to deliver the essential services our residents expect and depend on. Question 6. When addressing a problem with one of your staff's employees, you always check with the particular employee's manager or supervisor first before contacting the concerned employee. No, I do not always check with the manager first. My leadership approach is built on an open door policy, and I believe every employee should feel that they can voice their opinions and concerns directly to me without fear or reprisal. Ensuring that level of accessibility is vital for a healthy organization. However, accessibility must be balanced with a fair and consistent process. When an employee brings an internal problem to me, my procedure is clear. Number 1, I listen. My first step is always to listen carefully to the employee's perspective to fully understand the issue at hand. Number 2, direct to the proper channels. I then ask them to follow up with our Human Resources Department to formally initiate a review. This ensures that the matter is handled by trained professionals and that all proper procedures are followed from the very beginning. Number 3, I stay informed. I instruct HR to keep me abreast of the issues, progress, and findings, ensuring I remain accountable and aware without improperly interfering in an investigation. Number 4, acting on facts. Any direct action from my office is taken only after a thorough review and investigation has been completed by HR. This commitment to due process guarantees that my decisions are based on a complete and objective understanding of the facts, not on a single conversation. Question 7. In formulating our budget, how do you intend on maintaining or improving our current service levels without increasing costs and raising taxes and fees? That's a challenge I faced directly and successfully throughout my career. The core of my approach was forged when I was the budget director for the New York City Department of Health under Mayor Rudolph Giuliani. With a $1 billion budget and 5,200 employees, we were annually tasked by the mayor's office with a clear and demanding directive: make reductions while always maintaining service levels, to meet the city's legal requirement for a balanced budget. This isn't achieved by simply cutting budgets across the board. That approach only hollows out services. Instead, my strategy is a multi-pronged effort focused on efficiency, financial diligence, and leveraging partnerships. First, drive operational efficiency and accountability. Before asking for more money, we must first ensure every dollar we currently have is being used to its maximum potential. First, it's process improvement. I would begin by reviewing internal processes to eliminate redundancies and break down these siloed behaviors that I found in many cities that create inefficiency, a strategy I successfully used in Fort Smith to increase interdepartmental cooperation. Next, active project management. Costs can be controlled through intense oversight. In Reading, we reduced the cost of a federally mandated consent decree in our wastewater department from $450 million to $120 million through active project management, clear goal setting, and holding our teams and contractors accountable. Also, data-driven decisions. We will use data and measurable outcomes, as I implemented in Berks County, to identify which programs are delivering results and where we can allocate or reallocate resources for a greater impact. Number two, implement strategic financial management. A city's budget requires constant and detailed scrutiny to find savings and overlooked revenue. Financial diligence. Sometimes money is left on the table. At the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, a detailed review of past operations allowed me to identify $170,000 in capital reimbursements that had never been submitted for payment. I would apply that same forensic approach to our city's finances. Also, aggressive grant pursuit. We will actively seek out and manage state and federal grants to fund projects and services, reducing the burden on our general fund. Third, leverage public-private partnerships. Maintaining or improving services without new taxes often requires looking beyond the walls of City Hall. In Fort Smith, I collaborated with local business owners and leaders to expand services and build new parks through public-private partnerships. By leveraging the resources and expertise of the private and nonprofit sectors, we can often deliver better services at a lower cost to the taxpayer. In summary, my philosophy is that fiscal discipline and service excellence are not mutually exclusive. By focusing intensely on operational efficiency, diligent financial management, and creative partnerships, we can absolutely maintain and even improve the services our residents expect without automatically resorting to tax and fee increases. Question 8. What do you feel is the most unique challenge facing Palm Coast, and how do you plan on attacking it in both the short term and long term? Based on my review of the current public discourse and the city's own planning documents, Palm Coast's most unique challenge is a crisis of confidence, a profound disconnect between the city's detailed long-range infrastructure plans and the public's perception and daily experience of that infrastructure. One news report highlights residents' frustration, citing flooding, traffic, and a demand for accountability. Another argues against a false narrative, suggesting the city's infrastructure planning is, in fact, keeping up with the growth. When official plans and public reality are this far apart, you have an erosion of trust that makes solving any other problem nearly impossible. My plan to attack this challenge is twofold, focusing first on rebuilding trust and then on institutionalizing processes to keep the city and its residents aligned. The short-term plan: rebuild trust and demonstrate responsiveness in the first 180 days. The immediate goal is to bridge the communications gap and show that City Hall is listening and capable of acting. First, launch a back-to-basics listening tour and transparency initiative. I would immediately hold a series of town hall meetings in various neighborhoods. The primary goal is not to talk, but to listen to specific resident concerns. Simultaneously, we will create a public-facing infrastructure dashboard on the city's website, providing simple, clear updates on the status, timeline, and budget of key projects. This is about acknowledging the frustration, not dismissing it. Second, identify and execute quick win projects. Working with Public Works, we will identify several high-visibility, small-scale infrastructure issues that can be fixed quickly, whether it's a notoriously flooded intersection, a crumbling sidewalk, or a poorly timed traffic light. Completing these projects demonstrates immediate responsiveness and begins to rebuild faith in the city's ability to deliver. Third, conduct a rapid audit of the capital improvement program. My background is rooted in strong financial management and project oversight. I will personally lead a review of the current CIP to ensure the projects being funded align with the most urgent needs we are hearing from the community. We must ensure our spending priorities match the public's most significant pain points. The long-term plan is to initialize a culture of accountability and proactive management. That would be first. Rebuilding trust is just the start. We must create systems that prevent this kind of disconnect from happening again. We can overhaul the budgeting process for public engagement. I will institute the same model that was highly successful in Fort Smith, an annual budget workshop and strategic planning session with City Council that is open to the public. We will move from a static presentation to a collaborative process where we transparently discuss the real costs of maintaining service levels and the trade-offs required, making residents partners in our fiscal decisions. Then develop and implement a sustainable long-term funding strategy. A core part of the public's anxiety is the fear that we can't afford the future. Drawing on my experience writing a city on the brink of bankruptcy and growing a fund balance from $7 million to $45 million, I would lead the clear development of a clear multi-year financial plan. This plan will realistically project our infrastructure needs and identify diversified portfolio funding sources, impact fees, utility rates, bonds, and aggressive pursuit of state and federal grants to meet those needs without placing an undue burden on taxpayers. Also, rigorously execute the 2050 comprehensive plan. The long-term solution is to be proactive, not reactive. We will use the 2050 comprehensive plan as a roadmap, strictly enforcing concurrency to ensure new development pays its fair share and making the strategic infrastructure investments necessary to support our targeted economic employment hubs. This ensures that we are shaping our growth, not just reacting to it. Question 9. Leaders are faced with ethical dilemmas every day. Could you please describe a workplace ethical dilemma that you have experienced, describing the situation, task, actions, and results? An ethical dilemma I faced that has always stuck with me occurred when I was the Director of Administration for the $105 million federal Ryan White grant at the New York City Department of Health. It was a classic case of being pressured to do the easy thing, which was also the wrong and illegal thing. We had a nonprofit, a large nonprofit in New York, that we contracted with to manage the grant, the Ryan White grant. And they identified a common issue. Approximately 100 of the subcontracted service providers were significantly underspending their budgets. The logical and correct solution was to reallocate those unspent funds, millions of dollars, it was about $40 million, to about 20 high-performing nonprofits that were achieving great results and could immediately put the money to use serving the community. My task was to oversee this complex reallocation, ensuring it complied with the strict fiscal regulations of both the federal government and the City of New York. The ethical dilemma emerged when the managing nonprofit, backed by the Associate Commissioner, the second highest person in the agency, proposed a dangerous shortcut. To avoid difficult conversations, the managing nonprofit did not want to formally cut the budgets of the 100 underspending contracts. Instead, they wanted me to simply redirect the money to the other agencies or approve it without the corresponding budget cuts, a move that would have violated policy and created a massive budget hole. The Associate Commissioner became insistent and, in a direct meeting, threatened to have me fired if I did not process and approve the reallocation as he and the nonprofit demanded. I was faced with a clear ethical choice: fall in line with a superior's improper directive or stand my ground and risk my career to protect the integrity of a vital public program. I stood my ground. I calmly but firmly explained to the Associate Commissioner and subsequently to my own boss that what they were asking me to do was not just against policy, it was a fireable offense for me and a catastrophic risk for the city. I provided a clear, recent, and powerful example. The city of Newark, New Jersey had recently done the exact same thing, and as a direct result, the federal government had cut their Ryan White grant funding by about 50%. I made it clear that my primary duty was to be a steward for these public funds and that I would not expose the city to that kind of jeopardy. My refusal to compromise forced the issue up the chain of command to deputy commissioners, the associate commissioner of finance. Faced with a clear violation and the real-world example of the massive penalty Newark had suffered, my superiors ultimately supported my position. The associate commissioner, despite being the number 2 in the city, was overruled, and the managing nonprofit was instructed to follow the correct procedure. The budgets for the underperforming contracts were formally cut, the funds were properly reallocated to the high-performing agencies, and most importantly, the city's $105 million grant was protected. It reinforced a critical lesson. A leader's responsibility is to uphold the rules and protect the organization, even when it requires personal and professional courage. Question 10. What metrics do you consider the most important when conducting performance evaluations? My philosophy is that performance evaluations must be a holistic 360-degree process. While every role is different, I focus on a consistent framework of 3 core metrics that balance quantitative data with the qualitative feedback from the people we serve and the people doing the work. Number 1, meaningful key performance indicators, or KPIs. First and foremost, performance must be tied to measurable outcomes that align with the city's strategic goals. Subjectivity can be unfair and unproductive. In Berks County, I created the first countywide management report specifically to track goals and measurable outcomes. I then met monthly with department heads to review their progress toward those stated goals. This ensures that evaluations are based on objective data and that every department's effort is directly contributing to City's council vision. 2, citizen feedback. The ultimate measure of a city government's success is the quality of service it provides to its residents. Therefore, citizen feedback is a critical performance metric. I have a long track record of creating formal channels for this feedback, including overseeing the creation and operation of a citizen call center in Reading and the implementing of a citizen service center in Fort Smith. Whether through formal surveys, call center data, or direct interaction, understanding the citizen experience is essential to evaluating whether our teams are truly meeting the community's needs and effectively and professionally. Third, employee feedback and team health. A performance evaluation should be a two-way conversation. An employee's or department's success is heavily influenced by the health of the team and the support they receive. I want to know what challenges my staff are facing, what resources they need, and what ideas they have for innovation. My work in Fort Smith, mentoring managers for succession planning and for increasing work satisfaction, was built on this principle. By actively listening to employee feedback, we can address systemic issues, improve morale, and build a more collaborative and resilient organization, which is the foundation of high performance. Thank you very much for considering my candidacy for the City Manager of Palm Coast, Florida, and I hope my answers to these 10 questions will be met with acceptance. Thank you very much, and have a good day.